Hello and good evening. It's actually nighttime, getting kind of late, but I'm a bit unsettled. And so I'd like to talk about I'd like to talk about I don't know how to summarize it. I just had a tough day. I started driving for Uber and Lyft. This has been a long process and in many ways a stressful pain in the butt process to get to this point, but it was a brutal day. A big part of why it was a brutal day is I wasn't fully rested, and I chose to push through and to go out. And for some understandable reasons, it's like if being fully rested is the criteria for working, you know, that's just too rigid. In some ways, that's just too rigid of a criteria. If you need money, if you need to be working, sometimes you just have to push through. I've been doing that for a long time, but this is a crazy world. There's so many people who are so fucking lost, who are so confused, who are so confused. Let's just say that. And you see that. Boy, do you see that driving for Uber and Lyft. It's an interesting thing in some ways. I mean, because we on the spiritual path, how can you use something like the experiences of driving with very confused people and working, doing rideshare? What are some of the higher order lessons and what are some of the practical lessons? Maybe I'll start there. I mean, practically, and the two are kind of the practical and how it connects to the bigger picture. Those things are not separate, those are connected. But I guess one kind of big picture thing I'd want to offer talking about this as I work through this myself is I wish I remembered this aphorism, this saying. Lots of times there's like a saying or an aphorism that you don't fully verbatim remember. You know the gist and what it's pointing to, and you even know a few words, but then you don't have the whole thing, memorized. But there's one that's like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of pain. No, that doesn't make sense. An ounce of prevention. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But I think it applies in this case in some way. Let me see if there's a better way to say this. It's like This world is crazy town. Crazy. Very crazy realm that we find ourselves in. The species that we find ourselves in. Psychology, the collective psychology. And it's oceanic, the confusion. The scale of it, the magnitude of it, relative to an individual life, is something like an ant to the ocean, right? And the ant is not going to be able to drink the ocean or to transmute the ocean. It's not the best analogy. And so given that reality, given the scale of madness, this realm we find ourselves in, how do we live out the truth? How do we live out connected, peaceful, honest life of integrity, of goodness, of truth again? And a big part of the answer, in fact, I would say 85, 90%, so a major part of the answer, whatever the percentage, is I'll say preventative, though that doesn't feel quite like the right word. Let me talk about it and see if something else comes up. Meaning so much misfortune, heartache, drama, confusion, entanglement can be avoided by avoiding. Sorry for the redundancy. It's like the more and more healed you get, the more and more that sense of your own goodness, groundedness in your own being, lack of neediness, lack of addictive momentum, lack of external gratification, lack of the need for external gratification, an increase in the recognition that the hedonic treadmill, the search for satisfaction and wholeness through any external means is futile, is very painful. If not now, give it a little time and it'll catch up to you. And it's not skillful, but it just doesn't work that way. That's not where healing and satisfaction comes from. Part of me says, I wish it was that simple, just through the acquisition of enough pleasurable, what's the term I keep hearing? Hyperpalatable food experiences, hyper gratifying romantic experiences, through professional experiences. I mean, there's nuance in here, but ultimately those from the outside in, it's not going to happen, If it was as simple as picking up a cigarette or picking up a joint, picking up a glass of beer or a bottle of beer, Jack Daniels, whatever. If only it were that simple, right? Gosh, that would be, if that truly were the path, that would be great, right? But it's not. I mean, it's gonna lead. It's gonna immiserate you because what that is that those are all counterfeits. Those are all pseudo satisfactions. Those are all, in a sense, counterfeit forms of wholeness of God, but not just counterfeit. They I mean, man, it's kind of complicated. In one sense, pretty straightforward. It's like you're just self-medicating, but the medicine is poison. You're trying to self-medicate. There's an understandable psychological reason behind our addictions. It's because we're carrying a lot of pain because we've manifested in this insane fucking realm, you know? And that is one way to look at it that can provide a little bit of compassion, but bottom line is it's the wrong medicine. You're poisoning yourself. And so where I am way off right now into a totally different topic, I think. Where am I going with this? I'm sorry. Sometimes I just let it rip and I mean, there are many things I could say about that, but I'm trying to touch base with where I was going here. There we go. Got it. So, preventative, you know, not getting involved in things. And as you get more healed, here we go, this is the connection. As you get more healed inwardly, and there's less of a seeking mechanism, and you've transmuted some of that pain, and you found some of that inner stability, it becomes easier to recognize when drama is coming, when confusion is coming, and to just avoid it or not engage. And that's very protective of the path. And it's something most of us have to learn, unfortunately. I mean, it'd be ideal if we were in a world that just understood that and supported it and guided all of us in that direction from the beginning. But no, we're in a broken world here. The reason I'm framing it that way is if you don't have any inner space, if you haven't taken any time to stop, to surrender to the pain and all the crazy shit that you are carrying inside of you, then you almost can't, you don't have a point of contrast with the drama, and you just will get more and more drawn into it. And drama is an addiction as well, human drama. It's a form of addiction. It's a form of mental illness, you know? Because it's a way of feeding the pain that's inside of you, feeding off of other people's pain, projecting your own pain, etc. I don't think that's that hard to see, that controversial. See, by the time that you're already enmeshed in a drama, you've missed probably 20 steps previously that could have helped you to avoid getting into that position in the first place. And so that's part of the path, is working back in that chain of reactivity, working back in that chain of events and behaviors and actions and energies to a more fundamental place. And from that, you just make smarter, wiser decisions that don't result in being, enmeshed and in some kind of crazy shit. It's harder to disentangle because you could say compromises, but I'm real careful anymore to be too, at least for my own process, because a lot of this, you don't want to be overly condemnatory, overly harsh, overly critical about yourself. Once you've started to do the work, and you're starting to disentangle from this, you can look at your behaviors and past things and be like, I can't believe I was involved in that. But you can analyze it from another layer of just the depth layer of your biography and seeing all the forces arrayed against us, in a sense. Let's not go victim complex here, but the momentum of this world, and you can have some self-compassion or at least some understanding of how we get into really bad behaviors, etc. So it's really not about judgment, at least not in that sense. Just to make it a little bit more concrete, it's like one dimension could be your friend group. If you're hanging around very divided, very confused, very dramatic, very disordered, chaotic people, that's going to have an impact on your own energy, your own psyche, etc., your own mental health. That you may take on those behaviors in an effort to stay afloat in that social dynamic, right? To maintain that altitude that they're at. And that's not good. I've done that, definitely done that. We all do some of these things, at least to some extent. Yeah, we probably all do all of these things, at least to some extent, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to make too sweeping of statements here, but... And so you can see, just with an example like that, changing your friend group, or just being by yourself. That's a whole nother conversation. How many friends do you really need, in order to be happy? What is true happiness on the path? What is, I have a kind of extreme view on some of this, so I'm not sure I need to go down that road. Let's just say, in a very conventional sense, people talk about you are the company you keep. So you can just see in that sense, it's something you can do at a more fundamental level, rather than try to change the friend group, change the people themselves in the group and reform the whole thing, or try to be the impeccable shining light that then transforms your friend group. To some extent, you can do some of that stuff. You can have an impact, at least on a small scale, with a friend or maybe a couple friends, and help lead them in a healthier direction. But don't martyr yourself. And to me, that seems kind of unhealthy to me. Just at a more fundamental level, you change the people that you associate with, or you just spend time by yourself. That's fine too, right? And that can profoundly change things like your mental health. And that's something that's within your control, so that should be an empowering thing to hear. Why that doesn't happen so easily for people is because it requires inner accountability. You know, it's like we resonate at a certain frequency and we tend to attract. This universe has it seems like there's kind of a mirroring or reflecting back, you know, your inner state. In some sense, this can get you know, overstated, but you tend to attracts like, you know. And so part of that disassociation or disconnecting from unhealthy, let's say a friend group, unhealthy friend group, it means you yourself are going to have to work on your own character, on your own inner pain. You're going to have to stop, you're going to have to surrender, and you're going to have to feel some of that stuff and work to transform where you're at. So, and I think that's part of the reason why people don't do it, is because momentum carries us into crazy shit, you know? It happens in some sense gradually, you know, our own devastation, the devastation of our lives. It happens step by step, in some sense, incrementally over time. It's the frog in the boiling water, right? Look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to explain that. I have the energy for that right now. But eventually, you know, you'll become disillusioned. You will have a nervous breakdown. There'll be so much devastation and wreckage in your life that you're kind of confronted with, you know, your pain, or you're confronted with the result of that momentum. To say it just say it in one way. If you're addicted to a substance, it's like you can ride that for a while. You can keep going, but with the substance, it just gradually, the hold, the grip that it has on you tightens over time. It's like that with any toxic, unhealthy pattern. Interpersonal relationships, you know, toxic friend group, it tightens over time and your life becomes more and more chaotic, your inner state, you know, until, you know, you reach a rock bottom. And maybe it takes, you know, what is that? A low bottom, rock bottom. I can't remember all the terminology here, but jail for some people, perish the thought, death. I mean, I almost don't even want to speak all that, you know, but just use your own life as a reference point, and you can see, you know, it looks different for different people. So I really don't want to get into specifics about that, but forgive me on that one. And so the more fundamental changes you can make in the direction of peace, in the direction of health, the better. And the more healed you are, the more capacity you have to recognize danger as it approaches and to take a different path. It took me a while to get that, to express that. So forgive me, but I mean, or don't forgive me. I don't know. I'm kind of tired here. And again, it was kind of a crazy day. But, yeah, I mean, there's countless examples of this. It's like, for some reason, I'm getting all these relational examples that are coming up. Like if it's about, in one sense, doing your due diligence up front. It's kind of hard to do that when you aren't healed because you're just in kind of a survival mode. So it's like, you can't really, it's advice you can't really hear in some ways. So it's a little bit chicken and egg. I mean, fundamental thing is to do the healing. Yeah, is to do the healing, and then the capacity starts to open up where you more and more you extract yourself more and more from unhealthy things, and from that new baseline you start to choose healthier things, and it starts to over time, there's kind of a positive feedback loop or a positive incremental development in that direction. You just kind of have to set your sights in that direction, and it doesn't happen overnight, but it's a developmental process or process of evolution in some sense. I don't know. Yeah, it happens over time. Yeah, so I guess I would just want to say it's something like choose wisely. That's the best thing you can do, and that's gonna uh gosh, my vocabulary right now. Choose wisely up front when you can, to the best of your ability. And that will help to what's the word here? Ameliorate is not the right word. Uh, Forgive me, I'll just say lessen the chaos of your life.